Hey there, internet friends. Welcome to another episode of That Nerdy Site Show, a weekly podcast where the team members from That Nerdy Site get together to talk about our lives and all of the nerdy things we love about them. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and I'm doing a bit of a different thing this week as a kind of a quick solo episode. It's not going to be too long. I just wanted to kind of touch base on a lot of the upcoming changes to That Nerdy Site. For those that have not seen on social media or haven't or missed any of kind of our announcements or anything, Ben and Chloe from That Wannabe Film Class have kind of announced that they're going to be moving on here in the near future. And then a couple days later, Christian Puente, aka Pixel Brave, doing That Anime Pod, has also announced that he's going to kind of move on from contributing to That Nerdy Site in a full-time position. A lot of this is not completely built around all of the kind of concerns and issues around Logan that were mentioned briefly at the top of last week's show, but certainly probably have played a factor in maybe accelerating people's timetables or something like that. So really, I just kind of want to talk to that and the, I guess, the future of That Nerdy Site and what we're going to look like. But before I dive into that, a quick little bit of housekeeping first. If you do enjoy what you hear and want to support us on That Nerdy Site, you can please remember to like, subscribe, rate, review the podcast everywhere you can. If you're feeling extra generous, you can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/thatnerdysite, just like our wonderful weekly producer Jason Bellevue has. And we very much appreciate that. No other new patrons to shout out or give some love to this week, but if you do, we give you a little shout out there at the top of this show. So before kind of diving into, I guess, my plans for the future, I just want to run through real quick. I'm going to pull up and kind of read off Ben's statement here, as well as the statement we kind of put together for Christian's departure. But first and foremost, Ben tweeted out on Wednesday this last week, Chloe and I are leaving That Nerdy Site. I love That Wannabe Film Class and have loved working with Chloe on it every week, but it's time for a change. It'll be sad to see the podcast go, but I'm excited for the possibilities this opens up. And he kind of included with that a more extended note that reads as follows. At the end of July, That Wannabe Film Class will be ending as Chloe and I depart from That Nerdy Site. I'm incredibly appreciative of the team at TNS for inviting me on board, and I love what Chloe and I created with That Wannabe Film Class, but the reality is, between doing research, watching the movie, recording the episode, and editing the podcast, I put a lot of time towards it that I need to refocus towards other things. The decision to quit is one Chloe and I have been discussing for a while, but I also want to be transparent about why it is specifically happening now. Over the weekend, information came out about how Logan, a fellow Nerdy Site member and one of the original hosts of Film Class, created a deeply hostile work environment with his former coworkers, people I consider friends. I've never witnessed this hostility in my time working with Logan, and I hope that means he's learning and growing from his past, but That Wannabe Film Class was built off Logan reaching out to me and wanting to do a movie podcast. Essentially, without my knowledge, it was built off the pain he caused my friends. That's something I'm not comfortable with. We aren't going away immediately. Chloe and I reached out for Black voices to join us for episodes focused on Black representation, and though personal emergencies on my end has derailed that, we fully intend to stick to that commitment. July will be Black Lives Matter month, our final month. In terms of content with Chloe and I don't know what the future holds after that. I mean, she has Twitch, which she's good at, and you should check out besides that, period. So that was kind of Ben's statement on the matter. So as is touched on there, we will be doing, starting next week, I believe, is the plan, a kind of final month of Black Lives Matter, kind of a Black film focused That Wannabe Film Class. So I'm glad they're going to actually kind of be able to revisit that idea that that they explored wanting to try and do as the Black Lives Matter movement really kind of ramped up here in the last month or so. But then as kind of Ben touches there, a lot of his personal kind of life intervened, and he wasn't able to hit some of those episodes that they wanted to try and do. So I look forward to seeing and hosting those episodes, as well as kind of a closing out of That Wannabe Film Class. Ben and Chloe brought this to me a day before kind of we announced it publicly, that this is pretty much what they were planning on. And I mentioned to them at the time that I kind of feel like we always had them, and that idea was really on borrowed time anyway, as Chloe, even when That Nerdy Site started, was already kind of making significant waves in the broader community, and has only gotten more and more involved in say like her Twitch streaming and stuff. So it was always only a matter of time before Chloe went off to bigger and better pastures anyway. And I figured that would probably also drastically change up That Wannabe Film Class if Ben wanted to continue it at that point anyway. So this ultimately didn't come as too much of a shock to me. I kind of envisioned that, yeah, it was probably on kind of some sort of timetable anyway, but obviously, as they kind of touch on, the fact that That Wannabe Film Class did kind of start and was born a little bit out of Logan's departure from Rational Passions, which came out just this last week or two, was a much more toxic break than amicable. I understand Ben not wanting to really kind of continue moving that show forward. So I wish both of them nothing but the best. I think they did a wonderful job kind of really taking and managing and doing that show kind of. It was pretty much self-sufficient. I had very little kind of regular input or even kind of involvement in it. It was Ben really kind of driving that show, and he would send me the files, and I would occasionally go back and forth with him a little bit in like the promo tweets or kind of like editing down descriptions or something like that of the episodes. But it was all his baby very much. So if he's not looking to kind of keep it going, I can't fault him for that. I very much at the time I offered if they wanted to take the show and kind of continue doing it outside of That Nerdy Site, I'm certainly open to allowing them to do that, or if they wanted to ever come back and do it, they certainly have that. The door is open for them as well for that regard. So and then a couple days later, Christian came to me basically in a similar boat, not driven as much, if at all, by really the Logan stuff, so much as the broader industry kind of conversations that are going on. It's taking a toll on a lot of, I think, our mental well-being, just seeing how many abusers and predators and whatnot are out there in the industry, and people we considered friends or people we looked up to, all that kind of stuff takes a toll on you mentally. And Christian, as I think he kind of touched on already, was that we'd already kind of put that anime pod on a hiatus for a little bit because we were running into issues of really kind of keeping that on its bi-weekly schedule, because as soon as really all this COVID stuff started happening, Christian really kind of was not motivated to sit out there and watch anime and then record a podcast about anime and all that stuff. So we kind of already had put that on hold, but he kind of came to me this week and basically expressed to me the desire to kind of step away. And so he and I worked together kind of with some back and forth and put out this statement. Christian Puente, aka Pixel Brave, has made the decision to step away from That Nerdy Site in order to focus on his personal well-being. With world events as they are, Christian has had a difficult time finding the motivation to produce That Anime podcast, and that stress has grown in recent weeks to the point that Christian has identified a desire to step away from the website rather than continue to leave the show in its current state of limbo. He is looking forward to returning to just being a fan of anime without the need to produce content around it. Christian has offered to continue supporting Frank Bazzani's growth in video production should the opportunity present itself, and may still collaborate with us occasionally in the future, but his time as a regular contributor to the site will be winding down. He also, much like That Wannabe Film Class, intends to do at least a kind of final That Anime pod with the final episode in early July. We thank Christian for his time with us and wish him all the best as he focuses on himself. So that was kind of another... We put that out Friday night, I think, because he kind of came to me Friday morning. We basically spent the day, as I was going back and forth between kind of like work meetings and stuff, kind of addressing and proposing kind of that little write-up. So I think he's putting together like a vlog that will speak a little bit more to kind of his own personal stuff that he's been working on, but he's going to kind of do that on his own time, and I'm not going to rush him to do that. I said, like, do you want to put this out there with that? Do you want to hold off on that? And he was like, no, let's put this out there, and I'll deal with that, separately. So, again, we wish Christian all the best and thank him as well for everything he's done for the site. And so basically the kind of immediate takeaway from this for That Nerdy Site in general is that a couple of our shows are going to be winding down. That Wannabe Film Class and That Anime Pod are both going to be doing kind of final episodes or final runs of episodes here in July. So those will be basically retired shows at that point. And then just kind of in general, that also takes our team from 8 down to 5. And there is an element of it that is those 3 team members were kind of working really on their own self-sustained stuff. When I look at the slate of shows that Nerdy Site puts out, That Nerdy Site podcast, or that Nerdy Site show, that News You Care About, that D Plus show, and our seasonal kind of content of that Ultimate Video Game List show, I'm the driving force or one of the driving forces between all of those. And so That Wannabe Film Class was very much Ben and Chloe's thing, and That Anime Pod was very much Christian's thing. So they were kind of their own little self-contained things. In general, Christian and Ben weren't really doing a lot of crossover on a lot of the other podcasts. Christian occasionally would hop on to that Nerdy Site show to discuss, the games we're playing or the movies he's seeing or something like that. But largely they were kind of just off doing their own parts of the site, which I had no problem with, and that was kind of one of the original ideas and visions of the site as a whole. Was I can kind of help drive things in terms of like the administrative side of things. And so really my only involvement in those specific shows was they would send me over the audio files and an image for the thumbnail. I would take those, put them together, edit them into a quote unquote video version that we would upload to YouTube. But very much they were kind of delivering me an end product that I was pretty much doing almost no turnaround to get posted and uploaded onto the site. So I was doing that little piece of the end piece of the puzzle that they weren't having to worry about. And also managing, the paying of Libsyn monthly fees and all that stuff. So it'll be sad to see those 2 shows go. And with, our team drastically reduced here in 1 week, I don't know necessarily the full breadth of what the impact of this is going to be on the site as a whole moving forward. There are no real plans to pull away from any of the other shows, but with fewer people to pull from and to bring on as a guest or a co-host on this show, for example, or for that D Plus, some of these shows might, in the short term, I might need to, just for the sake of production, alter the schedules or something. We might, start dropping some of these shows down to a bi-weekly basis just to keep some kind of steady schedule going without overtaxing anybody here at the site in particular. So no definitive changes, I guess, at this point, but I just kind of want to put it out there that we might end up shifting some of these things around. We might end up, a couple of the other shows that were in our Patreon goals, we might kind of bring in and start, exploring the ideas behind those to replace some of this content. The future of That Nerdy Site is kind of the crux of this conversation that I'm having here with myself and a microphone is up in the air. There's no plans to just kind of shutter the site or turn things off. But I would be lying if I didn't say that I'd considered it over the last week and a half or 2, because just there is a lot of complicating factors going on, and so as Ben and Chloe and Christian kind of had conversations with me and other team members as well, but the other ones have maybe decided to stay with the site. It's been a tough couple of weeks in general, and I'm still trying to figure out kind of what this will mean in the long run for the site. But I think there's a potential opportunity here for us to maybe kind of regroup and redouble our efforts that we think can be, great fun experiences for us and good fun podcasts, and try and kind of start coming up with what That Nerdy Site 2.0 looks like. We've already had, some very preliminary conversations about what that might look like come time of our November 1 anniversary, but this might kind of cause us to duck our heads down a little bit ahead of schedule and try and really identify some of that stuff in the shorter term future. So that's pretty much what I wanted to kind of bring to the table here. Again, nothing but love and support for Ben, Chloe, and Christian. I'm very appreciative that they took a chance with me on this journey, and I'm grateful for the hours and hours of content that they were able to kind of produce, and that we were able to kind of present on their behalf. So, I wish them all the best. You can follow Ben at Mr. Bento Box. You can follow Chloe at Echo Chloe. You can follow Christian still at Pixel Brave. So please, continue supporting all three of them, in their post That Nerdy Site world, whatever they end up doing, if they end up doing anything. And I hope you'll check in with, especially with the kind of the final closing episode of That Anime Pod, as well as the closing month, themed month of the Black Lives Matter month for that Wannabe Film Class, which should start this coming Thursday, I believe. Last time I checked in with Ben, I believe that was still his plan, but his world is still very much up in the air as well. So we'll see how all of that plays out. But that's kind of what I wanted to touch base on and address with this week's episode. Just kind of a quick check-in on the current state of That Nerdy Site, with our dearly departing members, and then just kind of bracing, I guess, for the fact that there may still be further changes to come to some of our content or production schedules or any of that kind of stuff. We might shift some dates around or whatnot, to try and even out the load. And I still need to get together a panel to get that Ultimate Video Game List show back up and going for our season 3. So all of that very much up in the air, is kind of the crux of this episode. Thank you for taking the time to let me talk this out with you, I guess. And thank you to everybody who supports us and has been supporting us and has continued to support us or will continue to support us. So that's gonna do it for this week's episode. You can follow me at Trevor J. Starkey on Twitter. You can follow all of us at That Nerdy Site. You can check out thatnerdysite.com for the latest content. Hopefully this week I will have our review of The Last of Us Part 2 up on the site. I finished playing that in the last week, and I just got the platinum for it yesterday as I'm sitting down and recording this. So I've played through the game twice now, and I'm about halfway kind of through drafting up and processing my thoughts. So hopefully here in the next couple days, I will kind of finalize that and get it to somebody else on the team to review and edit, and then we'll get that published up on the site. So keep an eye out for my review of The Last of Us Part 2 in the days to come, and eventually we'll do kind of a conversation, spoiler free, and then probably a spoiler filled, spoiler casty kind of episode of this very show. So keep an eye out for all that down the line. And once again, if you liked what you heard, please rate, review, like, subscribe, maybe even consider supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/thatnerdysite, where every patron gets early access to a monthly bonus episode of the show. The monthly episode here for the month of, it came to Patreon at the end of May, has been an episode of Frank and Jazz discussing like procedural TV shows and detective shows and USA shows and all that kind of fun stuff, as well as some reality show stuff. And I believe the plan tentatively is for Logan and I to sit down and record an episode for our June episode. So no idea what we're going to discuss yet, but we certainly have a lot to go from. So yeah, So that's going to do it for this week's episode. Again, sorry, it's a short one, just with everything else going on the site. I wanted to kind of just really kind of focus on and address a lot of the site changes. So thank you for listening. As always, stay nerdy and be good to each other.